Hey everyone, welcome back, ready to dive in. Today, we're taking on a topic that's bursting with color and maybe a few surprises. We're talking about pumpkins.
Pumpkins, you say? Sounds like a real treat.
Oh, you know it. But we're going beyond the jack-o'-lantern here, trust me. We're going deep, using the pumpkin's Wikipedia page as our guide.
Wikipedia, huh?
Yeah.
Always full of rabbit holes. I'm in.
Exactly. So, listeners, get ready for some serious pumpkin knowledge history, surprising facts, even a peek into how these gourds went global. What do you say we get started?
Let's do it. I'm ready to carve into this one.
All right, then, no time to waste. Let's start basic. What exactly is a pumpkin? I mean, it's orange, it's round, it's a squash.
You'd think it'd be simple, right? But the funny thing is, there's no strict scientific definition of a pumpkin. The word gets used for all sorts of squash, which makes things a tad tricky.
So how are we defining it for this deep dive?
We're sticking with the Cucurbita pepo species. This one's special. It's one of the oldest domesticated plants we know of.
Oldest? How old are we talking?
Evidence suggests it was cultivated way back in 7000 BCE in Mesoamerica.
Hold on, 7000 BCE. That means people have been growing pumpkins for like, what, 9,000 years?
Give toyed it to century. It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Those jack-o'-lantern grins might be more ancient than we realize.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it like that. Those early cultivators selecting for size, maybe flavor, and who knows, maybe even those carving qualities we love today.
Speaking of which, have you ever wondered where the word pumpkin even comes from?
Honestly, I haven't given it much thought. It's just always been pumpkin to me.
Well, get this, there are two main theories about its origin, both rooted in linguistics. One suggests it comes from the Greek word pepon, meaning melon.
Melon to pumpkin. Okay, how'd that happen?
Think of it like a linguistic journey through time. Greek to Latin, Latin to French, and finally, with a bit of twisting and turning, we get our English pumpkin.
Language is wild, but it makes you think even a simple word can have this whole hidden history. What's the other theory?
This one's interesting. It points to the Massachusetts language, a Native American tribe. Their word popagoon describes something like grows fourth round.
Grows fourth round.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pumpkin, all right.
Exactly. And it highlights those early interactions between Native Americans and colonists. Language, culture, even gourds all intertwined. But I'm curious, beyond carving and decorating, what else can we actually do with pumpkins?
That's a great question. I mean, we all know about pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin pie is a classic, for sure. But it goes beyond that. Did you know you can actually eat the seeds, the leaves, even the flowers?
Hold up, the leaves and flowers too. You're blowing my mind here.
It's true. Pumpkins are surprisingly versatile.
That makes me see them in a whole new light. Not just decorations, like multi-purpose plant.
Exactly. And for those who are health conscious, pumpkins are packed with nutrients.
All right, hit me with those pumpkin power facts.
Well, according to our source, just a 100-gram serving gives you a whopping 47% of your daily vitamin A thanks to all that beta-carotene.
47%. That's amazing. I'm definitely adding more pumpkin to my diet. But all this talk about eating them makes me wonder, how are these things grown, especially on such a large scale?
Good question. Cultivating pumpkins takes the right conditions. We need warm soil, enough water, and of course our pollinator friends, the bees, need to do their thing.
You forget about the bees, but let's talk global pumpkin powerhouses. Which country takes the crown for growing the most pumpkins?
In 2022, China dominated. They produce over 30% of the world's pumpkins. That's a mind-boggling 7.3 million tons.
7.3 million tons. That's like, I can't even...
It's a lot of pumpkins. To put that in perspective, it's over 16 billion pounds of pumpkins.
Okay, China clearly wins the pumpkin game. Where does the U.S. rank in all of this?
The U.S. has a significant role, too, particularly Illinois. Believe it or not, 95% of pumpkins used for processing in the U.S. are grown right there in Illinois. And the king of canned pumpkin, Libby's.
Libby's. That name rings a bell. You know, speaking of Libby's, I remember a few years back, finding canned pumpkin was next to impossible. Wasn't there a huge pumpkin shortage or something?
You're remembering right. In 2009 and again in 2015, heavy rains in Illinois really hurt Libby's pumpkin supply, led to those shortages you mentioned.
It makes you realize how vulnerable our food systems can be, even for something as basic as a pumpkin.
A good reminder to appreciate every pumpkin spice latte, that's for sure.
Got that right. But, you know, pumpkins are more than just food. They're a big part of our culture, too.
Oh, absolutely. From pumpkin chucking, yes, that's a real thing, flinging pumpkins through the air, to giant pumpkin weigh-offs.
Giant pumpkins. Like, how giant are we talking?
We'll get to that.
Those weigh-offs sound intense. But before we go down that road, let's talk about maybe the most iconic pumpkin tradition. jack-o'-lanterns. Is there some deeper meaning behind those carved-up gourds?
You bet there is. It all goes back to an old Irish myth about a fellow named Stingy Jack. Legend has it he tricked the devil, not once, but twice.
Stingy Jack, huh? Sounds like my kind of guy. What kind of tricks are we talking?
One story says he tricked the devil into climbing a tree, then quickly carved a crowd into the bark, trapping him up there.
Clever. But how does this lead to jack-o'-lanterns? I'm guessing the devil wasn't too happy about being outsmarted.
You got it. When Jack finally died, all his trickery caught up to him. He was denied entry to both heaven and hell.
Ouch, that's gotta sting worse than being called stingy. So what happened? Did they just leave him hanging?
Well, the devil, maybe feeling a bit generous, or maybe just amused, gave Jack a burning ember to light his way as he wandered the earth for eternity.
I see. So that's where the glowing eyes and mouths come from. Pretty creative way to use an ember, I have to admit.
It is, but here's a curveball for you. Those original jack-o'-lanterns, they weren't even pumpkins.
They weren't. What were they then?
Turnips. When Irish immigrants came to North America, they found pumpkins were bigger, easier to carve, and way more plentiful. And so a tradition evolved.
Fascinating. It just goes to show you how traditions can shift and change as cultures meet and mingle. Speaking of different kinds of pumpkins, the Wikipedia page mentions there are way more varieties than just your classic orange one.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole world of pumpkins out there. Take the Big Macs, for example. It lives up to its name.
Big Macs. That sounds intimidating. How big are we talking?
These bad boys can get up to 100 pounds or more.
100 pounds. That's more than I weigh. Any other unique varieties we should know about?
Well, there's the Jarrahdale pumpkin. It has this amazing blue-gray skin, almost otherworldly looking.
Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Right. And then there's the Jonathan pumpkin. The story goes, it might have been named by European satirists, poking fun at American stereotypes back in the day.
I love that. It's like a hidden piece of cultural commentary right there in the pumpkin patch. This whole conversation is making me want to explore the pumpkin aisle a little more next time I'm at the store.
You should. And don't forget about those nutritional benefits we talked about. They go beyond just the pumpkin flesh itself.
You mean the seeds? I do love a good roasted pumpkin seed.
Exactly. Pumpkin seeds, or pepitas as they're sometimes called, are packed with good stuff. Protein, magnesium, zinc, healthy fats.
Okay, pepitas are officially going on my grocery list. What about pumpkin seed oil? I've seen it, but never tried it.
Pumpkin seed oil has a really unique, rich flavor. Some say nutty. Plus, it's got antioxidants, healthy fats, and has even been used in traditional medicine.
Wow, every part of the pumpkin is useful. Talk about an overachiever. But you mentioned earlier that different cultures have their own traditions when it comes to pumpkins. What's the global story there?
Well, here in North America, pumpkin pie is a Thanksgiving staple. But in other parts of the world, pumpkin shines in savory dishes. Like in India, they use it in curries and stews.
Pumpkin curry, that's a new one for me.
It adds a really nice sweetness and creamy texture, I hear. And in parts of Africa, pumpkin leaves are a staple. They cook them up just like spinach.
See, this is what I love about food. So much to learn and explore.
It's a delicious world out there. But back to those jack-o'-lanterns for a second. That Stingy Jack story. Are there any other pumpkin tales from folklore?
Yeah, I'm always down for a good story.
Well, in some Native American cultures, pumpkins were seen as symbols of prosperity and abundance, often used in harvest celebrations.
Okay, so not always spooky.
Exactly. And let's not forget how often pumpkins pop up in literature and pop culture. Cinderella's magical carriage, for example.
Oh, right. It transformed from a pumpkin.
See? Pumpkins have a way of capturing our imagination. And speaking of imagination, the world of competitive pumpkin growing. Now that's where things get really interesting.
You're talking about those giant pumpkins. Right, those things are massive.
No kidding. The record for the heaviest pumpkin was set in Italy back in 2021.
Okay, I need to know this. How heavy are we talking?
You ready for this? 12,226 kilograms.
1,226 kilos. That's,
Yes.
hold on, let me do the math. That's over 2,700 pounds.
It's heavier than most cars. These growers are practically horticultural engineers. Special seeds, custom greenhouses.
Talk about dedication. It's like the Olympics of pumpkin growing.
You could say that.
It's really incredible when you stop and think about it. All this talk about pumpkins and we're just scratching the surface.
Right. And to think, all this knowledge just from digging into their Wikipedia page.
It makes you realize there's a whole lot more to those orange gourds than meets the eye.
Definitely more than just pie and jack-o'-lanterns.
Speaking of which, what was your favorite pumpkin fact we unearthed today?
Tough one. I think I'm going with the whole global reach of the pumpkin. Who knew something so seemingly simple had traveled the world like that?
It really is remarkable. From those ancient roots to modern competitions, pumpkins have quite a story to tell.
Proof that the most everyday things can have these fascinating hidden depths.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, what other secrets are hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered?
I like the way you think.
Well, for me, I think learning about the word pumpkin itself was a highlight, tracing it back to Greek and Native American languages.
A true linguistic puzzle.
Absolutely. But our deep dive today was mostly focused on North America. The Wikipedia page mentioned pumpkins are now grown globally.
That's right. It got me thinking, what other pumpkin traditions and uses are out there in the world?
It's intriguing, isn't it? Imagine pumpkin festivals in Japan, or maybe pumpkin spice in traditional Indian desserts.
The possibilities are endless.
This whole conversation has definitely sparked my pumpkin curiosity.
And that's what we like to hear. There's always something new to discover, even in the most ordinary things.
Well said. So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you keep that pumpkin curiosity alive. Explore those global traditions. Seek out those unusual varieties. Maybe even try your hand at growing your own.
Happy exploring, everyone.
And with that, we wrap up our deep dive into the world of pumpkins. We'll catch you next time for a brand new adventure. Until then, keep on diving.